it appears AMD and NVIDIA are going to continue to be challenged to make a ton of money in China. So we've heard about NVIDIA's woes and chip controls that have continually thwarted efforts to build what they kind of call throttled back AI chips that can be used for hopefully what would be considered non-essential, non-military, not, in many ways, non-economic advantage building capabilities, yet still allow U.S. companies to participate in the significant market opportunity that is China. What was basically this week, Pat, there was a Bloomberg story that broke. It was a product that a China-tailored product by AMD referred to as the MI309 is what they're calling it, according to people. And it's not clear who's trying to buy it, but basically more or less that U.S. regulators told AMD that it is too powerful to sell without a license. And so basically AMD is going to need to go back to the drawing board on this particular piece at this moment. So apparently AMD thought it had met the requirements for the throttled down. Now we've talked about the requirements have been set. They're clear. They're understood. They haven't changed, but they're eligible to change at any moment. And there is an malleability to these metrics right now. And I'm going to do a reiteration here because I think it's really important. There's three major reasons that the U.S. is so focused on the semiconductor industry. It's national security, it's technology leadership, and it's supply chain resiliency. And why do I say these three things? Because global economic dominance comes down to having the strongest national defense, the strongest and most robust supply chain, and of course, being the global leaders in technology. So right now, of course, this is where there's a push and pull with NVIDIA, with AMD. They want to sell these chips into China. There's a huge amount of demand for them. There was companies like Baidu, Tencent, that basically said they have multi-years of NVIDIA chips that are powerful enough to continue to advance their products and services. They have multiple years worth of product still. This is where we've talked about the fact that we have seen a load of this stuff sold into these cloud scale companies. Yeah. They've been buying truckloads of these things. Do not for a minute think that all the stuff NVIDIA has sold over the last few quarters has been implemented or deployed. So the question mark basically is, you got Huawei building their own, we know that's happening. We know China is going to focus on empowering its own. So if we don't sell them into China, China will double down. And there is the EUV conversation, but we've seen recently now PC cores are not the same thing, or mobile device cores are not the same thing as building data center cores. But we've seen the newest Honor phone. Absolutely, Pat, we didn't talk about it, but absolutely gouging market share from Apple with a new design that people are loving, built on 7 nanometer. So without EUV. So some fascinating stuff going on, Pat. But bottom line here is another roadblock hit. AMD is not yet cleared. And this is going to be a headline that's going to be recycled several times, I think. I think we're going to keep tuning them down because we do not want to let China catch us in the race for artificial intelligence.
Yeah, so I wrote a research note related to NVIDIA when there was a lot of discussion about this. And essentially, there's 3 tiers that the U.S. Department of Commerce looks at. And think of an XY axis. On the x-axis, you have performance density. On the y-axis, you have total processing performance. And there's kind of this red, yellow, and green, right? Green is, hey, don't bother us. You don't need a license, right? Typically, below 1600 TPP and increment on performance. On the yellow, that's called moderate performance, right? The vendor gives the U.S. government notice, waits up to 25 days of approval. And these have a TPP of 1600 to 4800, but are primarily governed by performance density between 1.6 and 6. They've got red. That requires an all-in license, right? TPP above 4800 and nearly anything with a performance density above 6. And these are reviewed with a presumption of denial. So if you want to look at the gory details of how this stuff happens, and it's apparent, here's the odd thing, is whether you're AMD or NVIDIA, you know what the rules are, and you're gonna go in there. unless of course it's a red. So it's just shocking to me that people would put together a chip and spend the time to do that, and then it fails. It fails that level. But listen, this is the U.S. government. I find it amazingly ironic. Dan, you and I could cross the border and stick one of these cards in our luggage. Not that we would. And I know people like, listen, NVIDIA only sells racks, right?
Systems, baby.
PGX and systems, and they're right. But you could hypothetically come across the border with a card, AMD or NVIDIA, and marry it up with a system afterwards that you could get over the border. The other thing is that neither AMD or NVIDIA does not phone home for drivers. So if you have the drivers, you have the card, you pull in the system from the other end, you have it. So I don't think this stuff is even controllable, Dan.
Yeah, well, what you just said is probably intentional in many ways. And let's be very candid about, there's a pretty good understanding that around the world, there is a very robust gray market to move this product around. It's not done nefariously, but it's kind of like watches, Pat.
I mean, it's funny sometimes it is. When I was at AMD one time, in the front of USA Today business section was a picture of my product line in Iran.
But that's what I mean. Like,
you know what I mean? Like it's like, how did that get there?
This is like arms dealing, though. Right now,
yeah,
it's just the
100%.
arms is artificial intelligence. I don't know. We'll figure out some tacky thing that I can put a wrapper around